Hey YouTube, Dawson Ryder here. This is going to be my in-part spoiler-free series review for Red Ranger Becomes an Adventurer in Another World, but also mainly just to encourage those of you that might not have checked it out to watch it. If you want my more detailed thoughts, I reviewed all 12 individual episodes. I doubled up on a couple, but I have thoughts on all of them, so if you want detailed thoughts on any spoilers or developments, this is just going to kind of be general thoughts. But first of all, I just want to encourage those of you that are maybe Toku fans to definitely check this out. I talked about it a little bit in the announcement video and the first episode review. Some people seem to check that out of curiosity, but if for some reason you haven't jumped on board, I highly recommend it. I'll get into this when I just get into some overall thoughts, but the basic story, if you take out the Toku elements and whatnot and don't think about those too much, is, well, pretty basic. It's just a character getting stranded in a fantasy world and trying to figure out how to get home and what's going on there, making friends along the way, fighting enemies. You know, it's nothing revolutionary from that regard, but it is a very enjoyable anime. Like, taking away the Sentai elements again just for a second, it's a very, nice 12-episode watch. It's got fun characters, fun moments. The story has nice twists and turns. It always keeps the momentum going. It's generally a very enjoyable anime just on a base level. But it's really that Tokusatsu touch that makes it unique. It really feels like a love letter to Toku in a lot of ways, as it pokes fun at a lot of the fun tropes we have in this series about friendship and bonds and all that. I mean, the powers of the character are based off of band-aids, which sounds ridiculous, but is it any more ridiculous than anything we've gotten from Sentai and Rider in recent years? I mean, we just recently had Tire Head people. We're in the middle of a Gummy Bear Kamen Rider, so this is a gimmick that I could totally even see them using in a future series at some point. But they use it to sort of further the idea of bonds, you know, putting bonds together with band-aids, which really works. And I talked about this in many of my episodes, but one of my favorite things about the series was how well done the mythology and the world for the Kizuna 5 was thought out. One of the things I talked about in a lot of the reviews was how well done the mythology for the Kizuna 5 was. It was just so interesting that they could have very easily done a very, very basic premise just to poke fun at the Rangers, but they actually thought out the mythology where it felt like an actual Sentai with the way the bonds work. It was kind of Toku nonsense, but Toku nonsense that made sense. I legitimately wanted to watch it. I thought it was well thought out, well designed. I liked the character designs. I liked the Zord designs. It's a shame that we're not going to actually get merchandise for that probably, but that was just such a well done facet of it that they actually took time to flesh out that world, and the idea of the bonds and the band-aids was honestly brilliant, and they used that to sort of poke fun at some of the more optimistic tropes in Sentai, some of the stuff like the explosions going off, you know, of characters reacting to explosions, to materializing a Megazord in the middle of a cave. It's just all sorts of really fun and clever stuff that poke fun of this idiosyncrasies that we know from Toku, and it's all done, I feel, from a place of love. This, in a way, reminded me of two shows. One was Akiba Ranger, which was the unofficial Sentai series that was from the perspective of fans getting to become an unofficial Sentai, and that had tons of fun inside jokes and references that felt like they were coming from a place of love. It also reminded me of Tokusatsu Ga 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 because they also had their own invented Sentai for that, which didn't feel as fleshed out in terms of like the mythology of that show from what I remember, but it did feel fleshed out in the sense that it felt like a real Sentai coming to that world, even when she was getting hyped for the reveal of the sixth hero. That was a show that really just felt like a love letter to being a Toku fan, and that's what this felt like too from that. It felt like it had the spirit of Tokusatsu Ga 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 with that. So that is just so much fun, and they work it into the story in some unique ways. There's other Tokusatsu character surprises, other surprises in terms of the way that Toku characters have interacted with this world before, and I think that's what gives the series its unique flavor. And probably one of my favorite things, if not my favorite outside of the mythology of the Kizuna 5, is the fact that we do flashbacks that effectively port you over to Sentai episodes. Like, they'll go over to Red teaching a lesson about what happened with him and his friends, and it'll say, this happened in turn 5, this happened in turn 14. It's really cool. I, again, can't remember what series used turns to describe the episodes. I think it was a Yu-Gi-Oh! Series I watched. But it felt like you were actually watching a window into an animated Sentai. In fact, there's one episode that's almost exclusively flashbacks that feels like you're watching an episode of animated Sentai. That not only felt like proof of concept of seeing a really cool animated Sentai series, but really enhanced the series overall. And apparently those weren't done all that often, if at all, in the manga, or they were briefer, and we kind of expanded on that, which is really neat. So if you're a Toku fan, I highly recommend you check it out for that reason, because it's really cool to see what an animated series for Sentai would look like. In fact, going through this, I was thinking, for a Power Rangers reboot, as excited I am for a live-action reboot, I would love to see us do kind of an anime-leaning Power Rangers series, because I've said before, I think that that would be something people would be more willing to accept. You know, they kind of scoff and laugh at the silliness of MMPR and Sentai, but the silliness and quirkiness of anime has been largely accepted in the mainstream, so I think something like that could be really cool. I honestly would just love to watch an animated Kizuna 5 series. But so yeah, if you are a Toku fan, I highly recommend checking this out. If you enjoyed something like Akiba Ranger or Tokusatsu Ga 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 or anime, it feels like a love letter to Toku fans. As far as the series overall, like I said, the most unique thing about it was the Sentai premise. If you take that out, it's a pretty straightforward story. It doesn't feel like it has a classic beginning, middle, and end 12-episode arc. It kind of has these little mini arcs as we slowly build and we're introducing more characters and building up the premise and building up more mysteries about how he fits into this world and characters that have come into this world before and setting up things for next year with the villains as well as his team figuring out where he is, and it was still well done. It never felt very strangely paced. It still felt very tight and concise, like a really nice 12-episode watch. My only nitpick, not even a huge negative, but there was a couple of episodes that was strange, maybe by nature of how they were adapting the manga chapters, but it was like around episodes 2 and 3, and then a couple near the finale where they like smushed episodes together, it felt like, where half the episode was wrapping up an old arc and then the other half was starting a new one. It just felt very oddly paced there. It was just something worth noting. But otherwise, I really enjoyed myself week to week. You know, the viewership on these videos wasn't always the best, but I always really enjoyed talking about it. I always got excited with each new episode to see new elements of this world unfold and new facets of Toku being brought in, which I thought was just really cool, and it made me eager to see what was happening next. So I really enjoyed the series. If I had to give it a score overall, I would give it a solid 4 out of 5. I thought it was really, really good. Again, nothing revolutionary if you take out the Toku elements, and stuff like this has been done before, but the Toku elements really made it an interesting show. It was really cool to see these two type of worlds clash together and see characters react to these worlds, and it also had a really fun cast of characters as well. I really, really hope we get a season 2, and for whatever reason we don't, I'll probably dive into the manga. I've also been recommended Loser Ranger, like I said in the finale video. I do plan on watching that at some point, but I'll just watch it in full and do a video. But again, if you haven't checked the series out, highly recommend it. But if you did check the series out, what did you think of it overall? Let me know in the comments as always. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell to get notifications for all my videos. Awesome Writer, signing out.